Okay, so good day sa inyuhang mga students sa CNU sa to ang ah, subject which is the evolutionary biology. So I hope that kitang tanan is nata sa maayong kahimtang, di ba? So there might be some challenges sa ato ang pag-study or sa ato ang whatever we are doing right now, but let us not forget nga dili ta moundang og learn, okay, because every day is a new opportunity for us to grow. So I hope that everyone is doing fine, everyone is doing well, regardless of the circumstance nga ato ang gina-face. Okay, but anyway, I hope that my audio is clear. So I bought this new microphone para gyud ni sa ato ang online class. Okay, so we are now into another semester sa ato ang class. So I hope wala mo matulan sa ako. Okay, and I hope that you have learned something sa ato ang discussions previous sa ato ang mga previous nga mga subjects. But anyway, we are now on topic number 1 sa ato ang subject, which is the historical and philosophical foundations of evolution. So some of you might wonder nganong naamang yun yung historical and philosophical foundations. Why is it that we always go back to the history of these sciences? Okay, so nga I believe nga the lessons of history is very vital for us to move forward, di ba? So mao na ako ang philosophy, mao na ako ang belief nga in order for us to move forward in whatever we do, we have to learn the past. Okay, so kana siya. So that is why in order for us to learn the nature of kaning gitawag na to evolution, okay, we are going to discuss what are some of the history that are associated, okay, sa evolutionary biology, and of course we are going also to discuss some of its philosophical foundations. Okay, so let us begin. Okay, so here, so the first topic na to is the evolution of evolution, the historical and philosophical foundation. So I hope nga maklaro ninyo. Okay, so the principles of evolution is perhaps the most unifying field in biology, because when you talk about among the sciences, man good, there is this one subject, specifically sa biological subject, nga kana bitawng maka-touch virtually sa different portions of biology, and that is actually evolution, because we know nga evolution is the theory of evolution discusses how life originates, and it also believes nga how life is related, di ba? So we have discussed that one sa ato ang systematic biology, or I don't know, ako ba to inyong systematic biology, I forgot. Okay, but anyway, so mo ni siya. So when we talk about evolution, okay, so just like other nga mga branches of biology and in science, it is actually basing on philosophy, okay, because throughout the history of the sciences, ang kaning philosophy mao ni siya ang gi-refer sa several lato nga mga historians, nga mao ni siya ang inahan, or it is the mother of all the scientific disciplines. Okay, so mao na nga we know nga sa katong previous nga mga, or during the ancient times, daghan kaayo og mga tao nga engaged in philosophical discourse. Okay, so kana siya, so say for example sa ancient Greece, di ba? So ang kaning gitawag natong idea sa evolution, it did not started 200 or 300 years ago. It did not even started with Charles Darwin. So it all started way back during the ancient Greece, where various philosophers have their own models of origin. So kung makita nato nga daghan kayo og kanang mga philosophers, okay, so you know ang mga philosophers, they try to argue and make their point, which is actually in most cases is not siya sense, okay, because remember nga in philosophy, in science philosophy, remember nga science is not the only way. Mao na ang mga science philosophers, they believe that science is not the only way to truth, di ba? Because when we discuss science, it is all aiming to know what is true, okay? But in this case, philosophers are actually arguing that kanang science is not the only way nga makadiscover kag truth. Okay, so philosophy and logic can also discover truth. Okay, that is why nga it is also vital para sa ato as science students. It is vital that we have to integrate this philosophy sa ato ang scientific discourse. Okay, so say for example sa kang Anaximander, na version si Anaximander during the ancient um, Greece, nga giingon siya, life begins in water. So mao na kang Anaximander. What else? Empedocles, organisms life and death can be explained via the joining and disintegrating of the elements by chance. So mao na nga kang Empedocles pod nga ang kana daw ato ang kana daw formation sa usa ka organism can be joined by chance, so random nga pagka-mix. Okay, in other words, random nga pagka-mix sa kaning mga elements of the earth. So another here, organisms form and functions are fixed by design, which is also known as teleology. So lahi po ni kang Aristotle, Plato and Zeno. So they are into kaning design nga argument, and we call that one as teleology. So in general, the ancient Greeks believed in spontaneous generation, which believe in the formation of life from non-life. So if you are going to examine or evaluate the ancient Greeks nga stance regarding the origin of life, mo na nga ni come up sila og kanang gitawag natong spontaneous generation, di ba? So mo na nga ang life daw came from non-living matter. So it came from earth, it came from the elements of our planet, okay, and then a form. Okay, so mao na siya nga gitawag siya og spontaneous generation. So note that spontaneous generation can be interchanged with now the obsolete abiogenesis theory. So when you talk about abiogenesis, di ba, it's the opposite of biogenesis. So when you say biogenesis, that is to life, because when you say Genesis, that's the beginning, and bio, which is life. So life na siya, life comes, or life can only produce life. Okay, so non-life is dili siya makaproduce. Okay, so mao na nga abiogenesis and biogenesis are actually two opposing ends. So remember nga ang kaning gitawag nato abiogenesis, mao ni siya ang generally accepted nga version sa ancient Greece. Okay, so what else? Still in the ancient version sa Taoism. So the Chinese also have their own share of this kanang gitawag na to philosophical thought regarding the origin of life. So when you say that Taoists or the Chinese, they believe that different organisms are in constant transformation as answers to nature. So mo na ang sa Taoist, they believe nga ang usa ka organism is mag-change yun na siya as a response to the ever-changing natural environment. Okay, so di ba, it sounds familiar. It sounds familiar nga kanang gitawag natong adaptation. Okay, so what else? So the ancient Rome also believed that species form via naturalistic means. So according to the Romans nga ang life, it's actually part of the ongoing process of nature. So as nature changes, so with the products of life. Okay, so kana siya. So when you talk about kaning gitawag natong evolution, naapo na yung kanang gitawag natong religious view regarding sa origin of life. So evolution is deeply connected to kanang gitawag nato og mga naturalistic, okay, mga naturalistic nga belief. So mo na ang sa evolution. So when you say naturalistic belief, nature has the capacity to form life. Okay, on the other hand, kaning gitawag natong religious view, and I know that some of you here are religious people. So mo na nga this is actually common. So different religions have different versions of the origin of life, but Christianity's version is the most familiar among us. Okay, so I don't know if naamay lain nga mga students din nga non-Christian. So Muslims have their own version. What else? Hindus have their own version. What else? The Buddhists have their own version of the origin of life. But since nga we are all Christians, or I assume that majority of us are Christians, so mao ni na dinhi ang Christianity ang pinaka-common. So the rise of Christianity in the 1st century AD paved the way for the creation model of the origin of life. So mao na siya. So this is in contrast with what the ancient Greeks, ancient Romans, and the ancient Chinese nga ang ilang belief that nature can independently form life. Okay, so ang tanan nga kuan, it doesn't need any creator or a deity or a god to form life. But in contrast, kaning gitawag natong religious view of religious view of the origin of life, particular to that of Christian. Okay, so naa siya gitawag nga creation model of the origin of life. So particularly, it is represented or stipulated in the first book of the Holy Bible, which is the Genesis, and it became an integral part of the early Christian philosophers' life view of life's origins, particular to that of Origen and Augustine. So, kani siya si Origen, um, I think he is a saint sa Catholic church. And so with Augustine, they are actually scholars. They are brilliant people, and they are so obsessed with particular Origin. So naanay nindot kayo nga kuan, di lang nato ni discuss, pero Origin is actually obsessed of katong giingon nila, if I am not mistaken, Origin is obsessed of becoming an angel, kanang gitawag nga perfection. Okay, so he is actually basing on the biblical nga narrative. So with Augustine, so though Augustine believed that God could have created the elements of nature, yet organisms can slowly transform into different forms. Today, this is known as theistic evolution, which means theos or means God. So kang Augustine po is lahi po na iya ha. He believed nga mao to nga there is a God who created all the elements of life, and then he allowed life to or nature to form life, or to originate in nature, kaning by chance na lang. So unguided in other nga terms, and it is an unguided nga process, meaning to say, ang Ginoo lang ang there is a God nga nag-create sa tanan nga elements, and then he let nature do its course. So he let evolution do its course. So mao nang gitawag sa karon nga mga times, gitawag siya theistic evolution. So when you say theist, from the word theos, which means God, and of course we have evolution. Okay, so in the 8th century medieval Islamic society, several Islamic scholars have their own philosophy that have evolutionary implications in life origin. So Jahiz, okay, so Middle Eastern po ni siya. Okay, Islamic society is described that animals tend to eat each other, where the stronger animals usually eat the weaker animals. Who else? Ibn Khaldun and Mukaddimah also describe that organisms can change or transform, and that this change is an endless pattern. Who else? In the 13th century, Nasr al-Din and al-Tusi described that organisms capable of developing new characteristics in response to the environment have better survival potentials compared to those who don't. So you see, makita nato din even sa kaning Islamic nga mga philosophies nga they have also observed in nature nga, say for example, di ba, katong gitawag natong food chain. So food chain, weaker animals being eaten by stronger animals, katong particularly ang mga predators, and then ang katong mga nakakaon maotoy na ay higher tendency to survive. Okay, who else? Organisms can also change or transform. Mao na kang Mukaddimah. Okay, transform siya over time. Who else? So with Nasr al-Din and Nasr al-Din al-Tusi described that organisms capable of developing new characters in response to the environment. Mao na nga the more ka nga maka-adapt sa environment, the more ka nga naa kay chance to survive. Okay? So remember ha, nga this is still 13th century, centuries before or hundreds of years before even Charles Darwin wrote the book nga katong On the Origin of Species. Okay? So who else? Or what else here? In Christianity, one of the most influential creation philosopher is Thomas Aquinas. So I think some of you here, particularly those Roman Catholics, are actually familiar with Thomas Aquinas. His famous work was inscribed in his book, the Summa Theologica. Okay, so his philosophy on creation can be summed up into 5 proofs or ways. So, moto si Thomas Aquinas, okay? Si Thomas Aquinas he is a deep believer of God, the creator. Okay, unlike ni Augustine, 'di ba? Katong kang Augustine is more on katong unguided principles siya sa katong theistic evolution. But when you say Thomas Aquinas, ang iya pong orientation is that he wanted to prove that God exists. Okay? Because remember nga even though nga kanang ah, karaan na kay nang gitawag nato og naturalistic nga kuan, ang kanang gitawag natong atheism kanang dili mo tuo Ginoo, okay, it is already existing, okay, even millennia ago, okay, so thousands of years ni exist na ng atheism. So for Thomas Aquinas is iyahang gi kana bitaw gi advocate nga iyahang i-prove that there is really God. Mao na nga nasa iyahang Summa Theologica. So first here, the first way, kani gitawag nito the first way involves the evidence of motion. So the fact to Thomas that that every moving thing needs a mover shows that God, which is the unmoved mover, exists. So according to Thomas Aquinas nga, di ba ang universe is constantly in motion. Okay, so the planets are actually moving. Okay, what else? Ang solar system is actually moving. Even ang atong galaxy is moving because kung tan-aw nato sa katong sa astronomy, I don't know if you can recall nga ang ato bitawng universe is actually expanding. So meaning to say the distance from one heavenly body to another heavenly body is actually getting farther and farther away. So it's actually moving. So ang pangutana dayon ni Thomas Aquinas, who caused the first movement? Diba? Who caused the first movement? Because if wala siya first cause, kanang gitawag nato og first cause, walay force nga makapamove. Parehas pa kanang kanabitang gitawag nato og billiard. So di man ko kibalo mo billiard, pero I've seen people playing billiards. So panalitan akay katong white ball and then katong other nga mga balls, di ba? So kung dili na iduot sa billiard player kanang sa tako, okay, dili na mo move ang kanang white ball. So kung kani pong white ball is dili siya mo move, dili siya mo bangga sa katong other nga balls, ang katong mga others will stay at rest, di ba? Sa katong kang first law of motion ni Newton. So an object at rest remains at rest not unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. So ang pangutana ni Thomas Aquinas, who make the first move? So mao na nga ang kang Thomas Aquinas, this is actually a proof that God exists because he is the one who caused the first movement. The second way involves the notion of efficient cause. So for the series of causes and effects that we see in this world to make sense, it must have a beginning. God, the first cause, therefore exists. So according to Thomas Aquinas nga kanang, di ba, causes and effects maguna sa sciences, kung makita ninyo ang sciences, is either mo study ka sa cause or mo study ka sa effect. Okay, mabitaw na ang common nga mga studies sa mga researches is the effects of, di ba? So mao na nga tong i-investigate what is the effect, okay, and then investigate nga what is the cause. So say for example, if I have this water here, okay, dili man ni siya mayabo if ever nga dili na ko na siya tuwang ning ako ang water jar, di ba? So say for example katong sa first, in connection sa first nga proof ni Thomas Aquinas, so God is actually the most efficient or the most sensible nga component of the entire causes. Okay, murang naa ba siya i-ripple. So mao na nga that's actually one proof of God's existence. The third way notes that every living thing or existing thing does not owe its existence to itself. However, if all things are contingent, there could not have been anything, as at one time all these could be non-existent. To account for all existence, there must be a necessary being. So according to Thomas Aquinas nga kana bitawng it is impossible or it is not sensible nga walay isa nga nihimo og kaning sa, I mean, wala siya kana bitawng necessary being. Okay, so say for example, if I am a carpenter, I know nga ang usa ka balay is dili gyud siya matukod kung wala ko'y carpenter, wala ko'y engineer, wala ko'y materials. So according to Thomas Aquinas sa kaning ihang third way nga for a house to be built, you need a human being, di ba? Because it is impossible nga ang usa ka house mo exist by itself. So therefore, if ang universe is ni exist, therefore there could be somebody nga needed nga mo exist for the universe and life to exist. So mao na siya ang third. The third. So the fourth way shows that there exists gradation in things. For example, more noble and less noble, more true and less true. The existence of such gradation implies the existence of an absolute being as a datum for all these relative gradation. So when you say gradation, kana bang magka-increase ang iyahang levels bitaw. So say for example, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. Okay? Hangtod na nga moabot gyud niya siya sa time nga naagi siya sa pinakataas, di ba? So say for example, na ay kana bitang even sa kanang sa food chain, makita mo na to sa different levels na siya gradation. Okay? So say for example, katong smaller nga katong mga microscopic nga mga organisms is kaunon siya sa other nga mga bigger nga mga microorganisms, hangtod nga ang food chain is magkadako ang predator magkadako. That is actually gradation. So according to Thomas Aquinas nga we can also observe that in life. So kung mo tan-aw ganita nga kini siya is made up of cells, made up of tissues, made up of kaning tissues, ni kuan siya sa mahimo siyang organ, ang organ mahimong system, ang system mahimong organism, ang organism is mahimong population, mahimong community, hangtod nga mahimo siyang biosphere, hangtod nga ang biosphere magkataas hangtod nga moabot ka sa highest level sa universe. Maingon gyud ka nga there could be somebody else that is higher than the universe itself, and that could be God. Mao na siya ang gitawag niya nga gradation. So there is an absolute being, and that is God. And the fifth way argues that the behavior of things in the world implies a grand designer or architect, which is God. So according to Thomas Aquinas, wherever you go in nature, kung tan-aw nimo ang finest details, ang mga finest details sa kaning gitawag natong nature, makita nimo ang design. So if there is design, then there could be a designer or an architect, which is God. Diba? Mao ning gitawag natong teleology, katong akong gi-mention ganiha. So ang design would require a designer. Music requires a musician, di ba? Buildings require architects and engineers. Okay? So kana siya. A farm requires a farmer. Kana siya. So the universe creation requires a creator. So mao na ang philosophy ni Thomas Aquinas. Okay? So mao to ang mga different versions sa religious view. Okay? So let's go na to the scientific revolution. So when you say the scientific revolution, this is actually we are kaning ato ang gina-enjoy karon nga kaning progress in science. This we still owe this one to the scientific revolution in the 17th century. Okay? Because sa una man gud katibitang gitawag nilang dark ages nga tanan nga mga sciences is na kanang bitawng na stop ang ihang progress kay katong dili sila ganahang progress ba the Middle Ages, katong bitang mga Knights Crusade katong ato. So ni stagnant yun ang community, ni stagnant yun ang kaning quality of life, and then ni stagnant po yun ang kaning science. Okay? But during the 17th century, naahi gitawag natong mga movement nga known as scientific revolution, where in the earlier stage René Descartes may akong pag paminaw ani René ang uban Descartes, ang uban Descartes described metaphorically the world and all that therein as machines. Descartes' philosophy then led to the view that life is a result of mechanical development. So according to Descartes, he is actually one of the prominent figures during the scientific revolution. So the scientific revolution ni occurs siya, or it actually happened mga 200 to 300 years. Okay, for 200 to 300 years mao na ang katong foundation sa scientific revolution, and we are just reaping the rewards or the fruits of this scientific revolution. So mao na nga how René Descartes, philosopher mo sa René Descartes, ngin siya nga machine ang ato ang kalibutan, mechanical. Okay, so mechanical ang ato ang life sa tibok kalibutan. Okay, so it is a great, according to René Descartes, okay, that the world is a great machine at work. Who else? James Houghton introduced the concept of deep time, where based on rocks, the Earth was more than 6,000 years old, contrary to the dominant Christian worldview. So, kato atong gi-mention ganiha sa Christian worldview nga approximately 6,000 years old ang kalibutan. Okay, but according to James Houghton, ihang introduce ang ihang version pod is that naay deep time nga kung i-base nimo ang rocks, di ba kanang gitawag natong dating methods, nga kung i-base na nimo sa rocks, karaan kay ang rocks, it's more than 6,000 years old. Ang uban claiming nga it's more than millions and millions of years, ang uban nga ni billions of years old. So kung tanaw na nato nga maingon ta nga it's actually disproving what the creationist claim that the earth and life is actually at least 6,000 years old. So meanwhile, John Ray, a noted taxonomist during his time, was credited to be the first person to describe what a species is. So si John Ray ang nag first describe kung unsa ang usa ka species. A noted taxonomist during his time, he was credited to describe what species. His view is that every species has all the essential characteristics that and species will always produce offspring similar to parents. I don't know if you have encountered this one katong different species concept, katong biological species concept, di ba? So, kung ang iring is magmate og iring, mo expect yung ka nga ilahang anak is iring, di ba? Ang iro mo mate og iro gihapon na ilang anak. Ang mango imuhan nang i-breed with mango, it is impossible that mango could produce banana. So, hinana siya. So, mao na ang description ni John Ray. Who else? Carolus Linnaeus' work on classification of organisms in 1735 is considered as one of the pivotal moments in evolutionary biology as it narrates the relatedness of organisms. So, it is Carolus Linnaeus nga, di ba, he is one of the founders sa kaning, or makita gyud nato nga he is the most significant pillar sa systematic biology, kaning taxonomy. So mana nga dinha niya nakuha or other people interpreted the work of Carolus Linnaeus nga ang kaning mga organisms kay nag-group naman to sila, di ba, katong nature sa taxonomy is grouping sa relatedness. So kung related sila, that means to say they share a common ancestor, okay, in the long line of the history of life. Okay, who else? Charles Bonnet was credited to first use the word evolution, where he refers to the preformed organisms for future generations. Okay, so it is Charles Bonnet who coined the word evolution. Who else? Charles Bonnet, James Burnett, and Lord Morbodo theorized that humans have descended from primates in 1773. Okay, so kana siya primates. Dinan makita na to ang progress sa kaning idea sa evolution. Charles Darwin's grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, proposed in 1794 that warm-blooded animals differentiated from a single form. So makita na to si Charles Darwin is actually kanang nanasli kanang lineage sa kaning mga thinkers and philosophers. Okay, prominent magud ni ang family ni Charles Darwin. Okay, sa England. I think England is la. Basta na siya sa United Kingdom karon. Okay, so 1809, John Baptiste Lamarck suggests that the use and disuse of phenotypes could lead to changes which will then be passed on the succeeding generation. Diba? Kanang the theory of use and disuse. So kung magsige ka gamit ani nga body parts mo na nga pwede na nimong mapass sa imuhang sa next generation if ang usa ka body part is gamay ra kayo ng gamitan, okay, o dili kay na siya permi ginagamit, okay, ultimately it will be deleted, especially sa kanang sa pagpass sa imong characters from one generation to the next. So mao na kang John Baptiste Lamarck. Alexander von Humboldt pioneers the field of ecology. So he is actually the father of ecology, si von Humboldt. In 1840s, where he established the critical relationship between the environment and the species. So according to von Humboldt nga naay crucial role kung what type of environment, okay, naay crucial role na siya sa formation of species. Okay, 1858, Alfred Russel Wallace, a contemporary of Charles Darwin, independently conceived the idea of evolution by natural selection somewhere in Indonesia. The following year, Charles Darwin published his iconic book on the origin of species. So there is if you are going to go to the story between Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Darwin, nindot ni ilang story kay they both independently theorize the evolution nga view sa life. Okay, sa ilang own version na sa ilang merit. Si Alfred Russel Wallace lang is murag dili kayo siya economically nga privilege unlike sa kang Charles Darwin. That is why si Alfred Wallace, okay, Alfred Russel Wallace is naghimo na siya expedition using his own money. Okay, using his own money nga iyang ginatrabahuan, mas lisod ang iyang naagian compared kang Charles Darwin. Kaya akong gi-mention ganiha, mas privileged ni economically, mas naay wealth si Charles Darwin. And then Alfred Russel Wallace is wala gyud na siya background sa ilang family line. Okay, wala sila background sa kanang gitawag natong science unlike sa kang Charles Darwin. Okay, so mo na nga si Alfred Russel Wallace, importante kay iyahang na kuan, iyahang na contribute sa science, particularly wala lang siya makahapit gyud sa Pilipinas, naman siya sa Indonesia dapit nagtrabaho. Okay, who else? 1866, Gregor Mendel finished his work where he established the genetic basis of inheritance through his book Experiments in Plant Hybridization. So makita nato si Gregor Mendel, we know that he is the father of genetics. Okay, who else? Ernst Haeckel, inspired by Darwin, applied the theory of evolution in embryology. Charles Darwin published his second book, The Descent of Man. Thomas Hunt Morgan rediscovered the unattended work of Mendel when he established that chromosomes contain the genes that can be inherited by offspring. He used the fruit Drosophila melanogaster. Now, the funny thing about Gregor Mendel, sa katabi to ihang work sa plants, okay, so wala kayo na siya ma-appreciate, okay, wala kayo na siya ma-appreciate sa science, okay, but decades after sa death ni Gregor Mendel, mao to nga gigamit ni Thomas Hunt Morgan ang principles ni Darwin ni Mendel, and then mao to iyang gi-attest that Mendel was right all along. Okay, so mo na si Thomas Hunt Morgan, mo na ang Drosophila melanogaster ang iyang gigamit nga study organisms sa katong inyang inheritance, because sa una man god, scientists believe nga ang nag-carry sa inheritance is not nucleic acids but proteins, mo nilang belief. Pero mo na nga gi-affirm ni Thomas Hunt Morgan that it is not protein, okay, but the genes, okay, mo na ang iyang. So this is the origin of species, and this is one of the famous nga page ni Charles Darwin, di ba? I think, okay, so makita niyo makita natin din nga this could be a common ancestor, okay, and then nag-differentiate siya into different species, making all species din sa kalibutan as related, okay, and it descended from a common ancestor. Okay, so modern view, Ernst Mayr, 1940s, described the biological species concept when he published his Systematics and the Origin of Species. So the discovery of the correct structure of DNA by James Watson, Francis Crick, Rosalind Franklin, and Maurice Wilkins. So makita nato din nga so far para sa ko alang ni that the most significant sa 100 years is the most significant nga discovery sa biology is actually the discovery of the correct structure of the DNA by these four individuals, Watson, Crick, Franklin, and Wilkins, okay, and being the molecule that codes the characteristics of organisms, because hindi na magod nato makita nga daghang kay implication ang kaning gitawag natog genetic studies, okay. So on top sa kaning gitawag natog understanding the genes, the heredity, other people are actually trying to decode whether or not these genes kaning gitawag natong DNA is isa ba ni siya ka evidence nga na ay common ancestry, okay. So this marks the start of what is known today as neo-Darwinism. So when you say neo-Darwinism, ang neo-Darwinism is integrating genetics, the genes, kanang gitawag natong molecular biology, into the study of the origin of life. Kay sa una, remember sa philosophers pang mga times, sa scientific revolution, ilaha lang magkuanon ang katong morphological, di ba? Morphological lang, and then observation sa nature, mao lang to ang ilahang gitawag nato basis why they say nga na ay common ancestry. But the integration of kaning gitawag natong molecular biology, particular to that of the molecular biology of the gene, mao na nga na ay gitawag natong neo-Darwinism. So neo-Darwinism can also be viewed as the integration of the theories of Darwin and Gregor Mendel. So muna kong gi-mention ganiha. So that's the integration of molecular biology, particular genetics, and that of evolution. Okay, so moto siya ang ato ang topic number one. Okay, so topic number one to siya. So moto ang actually you can still um, view or you can still learn a lot of different views on the origin of life, to that of particular to that of the kaning mga philosophical and historical foundations. So moto so um, I hope nga you have learned something about this one. So I encourage you to study further. Okay? Okay, because para sa kuha, because I am more into philosophy and history of science. So this is actually a beautiful theories. Okay? Evolution is a beautiful theory which is also a subject to different criticisms. Okay? So I would say that I am a religious person. Okay? I am into creation, but I don't have to deprive myself of this theory. Okay, kana siya. So some of you might find yourself nga struggling, especially sa katong mga naay mga uh, katong active sa ilahang mga different churches. So some of you might find yourself struggling with this one, but I am here to help you. Okay, I am here to help you nga dili kay ta maglibog. Okay, so kana siya. So I hope that you have learned something. No, naisilingan na mo. So I hope you have learned something sa ato ang discourse. Okay, so thank you everyone and see you on the next natong topic.